Hello, dear friends. This is the Medium's Harvest by Emmanuel through Xavier. We are studying the 90 chapters that were written by Emmanuel in 1960 and were published in 1961 by the Brazilian Spiritist Federation. The book is finally translated thanks to the efforts of the Spiritist Society of Virginia and the Inner Enlightenment Spiritist Society. And we are today on chapter 75, which is titled Let Us Explain. What is it that Emmanuel wants to explain and is inviting us to explain as well? Well, let us read item 301, paragraph 4 from the Medium's book, from which Emmanuel extrapolates his dissertation. Let us see what it is. Item 301. 301, the item, comes into chapter 17. And forgive me, I just missed a page. Here it is. Chapter 27. It's about responses given by the spirits to questions regarding contradictions. There is a chapter in the Medium's book, 27, that is titled Contradictions and Deceptions. What is this all about? Emmanuel says, Kardec says, the opponents of Spiritism do not hesitate to point out that its adherents do not agree amongst themselves, that not all even share the same beliefs. In other words, they contradict one another. So what do the spirits say in that regard? There are several questions and answers, and there is one in particular, number 4, that we're going to focus upon today, okay? So let us see what it is. Kardec asked the following question. Even apparent contradictions can cast doubt in the minds of certain persons. What method should we use in order to recognize the truth? Answer of the spirits. In order to discern error from truth, one must delve into the understanding of our responses by carefully and seriously meditating on them. A true study must be made of them, which requires as much time as other studies do. Study, compare, meditate upon the issues. We have constantly affirmed that knowing the truth has its price. How could you expect to reach the truth by interpreting everything according to your own narrow-minded ideas, but which you consider so great? The day is not far off. However, when the Spirit's teachings will be uniform not only in their details, but also in their main aspects. Their mission is to destroy error, but this can only occur gradually. This is an interesting method. Study, compare, and meditate to know what is true and what is not true. Study, compare, meditate. Very scientific method. Being a scientist, I'm not going to say in an arrogant way, but as a student of the spirits, I'm going to say the spirits are right. Based on our experience, they are right. They are right. The spirit teachers are right when they are saying there is a price to know the truth. And the price is made out of effort. Effort to study, to examine, to reflect, to meditate, to ponder, to compare. Many people call us at Kardec Radio and say, Vanessa, what do you think about this speaker? What do you think about this book? What do you think about that? I say, thank you for asking, but if I know, I'm going to share what I know. But if I don't, I'm going to say, look, to answer to this question, I need to study more about it. I need to compare and have time. I cannot, in a simple glance, just get it. And this is not scientific. This is not, I would say, responsible. So it surprises us in our Spiritist movement, disciples of the truth, because the Spirit of the truth is the leading force of the Spiritist teachings, that some of us are being careless with Kardec's recommendation. We cannot verify the difference between things and ponder and filter what is truth and what is not the truth by simply reading quickly or thinking about it or based on somebody else's opinion. We need to study, right? Meditate, reflect, ponder. What does, and this is about mediumship, because the spirits are talking about what they say. They're saying, if you want to know what we're saying is true or not, you need to make an effort. And many people don't want to make an effort. Immaturity. Like children. They're like, oh, it's too hard. I don't want to put my sock on. Well, but you need to make an effort. Otherwise, it's going to be harder and harder. That's how it works. Look at the seed in the soil of the earth. God is not like, oh, you little tiny seed. Let me, God is giving all the power within it and encouraging. Go on. And the sunlight. Come on. And God inside. Go on. And the sunlight. Go on. Come on. Go on. Come on. Go on. And inside and outside there are stimuli bringing us forth. But we need to make an effort. We need to make an effort. It has a price. To know the truth, there is a price. So that's why we're here at 11 p.m. And Karina Alice is there 2 a.m. in Brazil, and other friends in other parts of the world. You can share where you are. Feel free to share and the time zone and the time that you're watching this, just so everybody feels that we are making a collective effort, because we want to understand the truth. After all, this effort of being disciplined is about following the truth. And that's what we are intentioning to do, right? Right? All right. Ana Oliveira from Alabama. It's 10 p.m. Thank you, Ana. Chapter 75. Let's listen to our teacher, Emmanuel. He wrote, let us explain. Meeting on October 14th, 1960. Based on item 301, paragraph 4. You are aware that the Spiritist doctrine is the revival of Christianity in its purity. In the early days of the gospel, the apostles of the edifying idea were the mediums of the good news, spreading their teachings. Today, Spiritism is the word that complements them. Jesus said, it's necessary for you to be born again. Let us point out that the Master refers not only to the rebirth, symbolic by attitude, valuable by insufficient, but to reincarnation, in which the Spirit improves from body to body. Jesus said, Unless you become like children, you will not enter the kingdom of God. Let us make clear that the Master does not approve of inexperience, but invites us to simplicity so that we can live without taboos and without artifice, cunning. Jesus said, "Consider the lilies of the field, which neither spin nor weave, and yet Solomon, in all his glory, could never dress as one of them." We know that the Master does not support laziness in the name of faith, but rather puts a fair emphasis on duty, in which no one has to assault the resources of others on the pretext of our own happiness, because the lily of the field, where it flourishes, it attends to the function that fits in the economy of nature. Jesus said, "Whoever humbles himself will be exalted." Let us observe that the Master does not encourage the fools to control the best share on the table of opportunism, but rather encourages those who are loyal to the righteous conscience, proceeding without disturbing their own brethren in the work which divine providence grants them to perform. Jesus said, "Love your enemies. Do good to those who harm you, and pray for those who persecute you and slander you." Let us know that the Master does not expect his disciples to become the legion of sycophants of the important delinquents of the earth, but he advises us to respect our adversaries for the sincerity they show, giving them the means to do better than we do, the task in which they criticize us. Then we'll be continuing on our end the execution of our commitments, cultivating the patience that was practiced by Jesus when he helped the persecutors themselves through the silent help without applauding their cruelty. Jesus said, "But the Consoler, the Holy Spirit, whom my Father will send you in my name, will make clear in all things and will remind you of all that I have said to you." Let us show that the Master does not report to a cosmic event at odds with the natural laws, but to the Spiritist teachings by which the Spirit sanctified in evolution returned to the world, clarifying the paths of life and reaffirming what he himself taught us. Do not make of your conviction the incense to idolatry. Recall that in the Spiritist teachings, one must study and learn, understand, and explain. Why, if you are willing to understand and practice mediumship, we needed to pause to meditate on this? Why? Because he says here, mediumship under the light of Spiritism is service with Christ. But Vanessa, I remember one day, non-Spiritist friends who were spiritualists came to me and said, "We want you to tell us about mediumship, but don't talk about Jesus." I understand where you're coming from, but I can't. But Vanessa, we just want you to talk about mediumship in the light of Spiritism without talking about Jesus, because I came from a family very evangelical. I don't like to talk about Jesus, very traumatic to me. And I say, I understand you, and I'm sorry, I'm sorry that you were introduced to Jesus in such a confusing way. Because the way Spiritism understands Jesus is completely different. Jesus for us is not the representative of a man. As a pure spirit, he came in the body of a man because of the circumstances of the time. But it's not about being a man or a woman. 2, what people made of him not necessarily is him. And it's not. And Spiritism comes to rescue the purity of the purpose of the coming of the Messiah. So it's impossible to talk about our attitude before mediumship without mentioning the guided model. Because for Spiritism, we practice mediumship like Jesus used to do. He is our model of being a medium. Why don't you give yourself an opportunity to be introduced to the Christ Jesus probably you've never heard before? We're not imposing, we're just proposing. And that's why Emmanuel begins this message by saying, let us explain. And he says to you and me, you're aware that Spiritism is the revival of Christianity in its purity. What is it, the revival of Christianity? It's the teachings that come back again in its purity. Why? Because Spiritism now can explain what Jesus couldn't explain. So we need to share with our friends. I understand you may have never heard of Jesus because you're not even coming from a Christian background, or you came from a Christian background but very confusing in the Christian ideas. But let us empty our cup out and allow it to be replenished, shall we? And that's what Spiritism comes. Spiritism is a world that complements the teachings that were back in the days of the gospel, early days, and now they can be understood from the vantage point of today's world. We have greater vocabulary to understand it. We have great signs to pair up and make us feel it even more. And we have greater reasoning ourselves, our own selves. Right? Teresa Castro is reminding us. The first Christians before church, corruption. Exactly, Teresa. And that's why Emmanuel wrote the novels, the 5 novels, which actually report true accounts, though in the form of a novel. 2,000 years ago, 50 years later, Hail Christ, Renunciation, Paul and Stephen. In those 5 books, we're going to find, especially besides Renunciation, which is post the church corruption, right? But the first 4 is about the first century and a half of the first 3 centuries at least of Christianity before the actual corruption. So it's worthwhile reading it to understand more what Emmanuel is talking about in the exercise of mediumship. So now he gives to us several key points that become very confusing if we don't have the Spiritist take on it. Teresa Castro is sharing, Hail Christ is her favorite. That would be interesting to know more about the reasons why you like so much that book. I agree with you, it's fantastic. It would be good to know more about it, Teresa. If you can share, we would love to know, okay? Jesus said, and then he says, first point, when we talk about Jesus saying it's necessary to be born again. And people think that it's to be born in spirit. Yes, it's to renew ourselves, but not only that. It's about reincarnation. and Spiritism explains it. Another point, when he welcomed the children, people think that it's only about childhood. Not only, it is, but not only. It's also about the simplicity that is in all of us. Because when we become adults, we become very complex, unnecessarily. Think about this. Psychologically, you as an immortal spirit, you are in the physical body, connected to a physical body of a child, okay? As a child. Playful, joyful, mindful. Grow up. Why do we lose the playfulness, the simplicity, the trust, the mindfulness? Repression, repression, repression. So we need to take good care of the inner child. And the inner child calls for simplicity, sincerity, honesty, dignity, no masks. Children don't use masks. And that's fantastic. Why can't we just continue it? So that's what he's saying here. Without taboos, prejudices, right? Another point about the lilies of the field, which is not about laziness, but about duty mixed with the trust in God. And that's why many people are stressed out nowadays. Humble, humility. Whomever humbles themselves will be exalted, and people don't understand what it means. So we play false modesty. And depending on the culture, we love that false modesty. Who am I? I'm a nobody. And Emmanuel in the book Living Spring, he has a lesson. I forgot the number of the lesson, but he talks about language. And it says we should learn to use our language, not to be so sweet that people don't trust us, not to be so soothing that it may be strange, and not rude or rough that may be destructive. But we need to be who we are. But who we are, not the divine essence, the best of us. And that doesn't need a mask. So humility in the book Thought in Life, chapter 24, tells us humility is not subservience. It's primarily independence and inner freedom springing from the depths of one's spirit, sustaining its continuous renewal towards goodness. So yesterday we talked a little bit about humility, and here we are again. So it's about being firm and knowing that we're serving God. Love our enemies. One very tricky understanding nowadays, even in Christianity, we don't practice it yet. But what does it mean to do good to them, to pray for those who persecute and slander? Does it mean that you're feeling uncomfortable and you're going to be praying? If you feel uncomfortable, it's not sincere to put that person in your prayer. But you can ask God, God, help me with these uneasy feelings. I would like to be detached, to be more comfortable. And it's one of the most common things. I'll give an example. Thank you, Rudy. Rudy is giving us here the lesson, Living Spring number 43, titled Language. Thank you so much, Rudy. So let me tell you a case of a person. This person was going through, it was a he was going through a tough time because his ex-wife remarried, and was having a baby. And he was so enraged. And we said, look, pray for your ex-wife. And he laughed at me and said, I can't. I know I should, but I can't. Because you know why, Vanessa? I dream of killing that baby. I'm not going to do it. But that's my dream. This is us, my friends. In our true instinctive nature, we're still like that. When we feel hurt in our ego, we're still in reactions that are quite violent. We need to tame those aggressions. But don't feel guilty. Work on it. And we said, look, if you can't pray, pray for yourself. That you ease and soothe these aggressive feelings. Because you deserve to be free. Without noticing, this man was becoming the obsessor of his ex-wife. He may be disturbing the ex-wife and the family, but first and foremost, he is obsessing himself. He's destroying his life. So when Jesus said to us, love your enemies and do good to those who persecute, he does not mean that we are just going to allow people to come through us, do whatever they like, and we're going to say, oh, I'm going to love you, and even the abusive ones, but we're going to respect them. Respect our adversaries for the sincerity they show. People have the right to remarry, to have children. They have the right to do it, and we have the obligation to respect. Why? Go to the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec. Third part of the Spirit's book. Law of Justice, Love, and Charity. Kardec asked, what is the concept of justice? To the spirits. And they answered, to respect people's rights. People have the right. If God allows them to remarry and have a child, who are we to say you cannot? They have the right. And what are we going to do? Respect. People are slandering us. They have the right to slander. They are creating plots against us. Unfortunately, they have free will. And I respect that. Do I like it? No. Do you like it? No, we're not crazy. But we're not going to die because of it. We're not going to allow it to eat us up. We respect. Knowing that there is one law of action and reaction. They are creating karma for themselves. Like we are now harvesting what we've sowed in the past, they are doing in this life. And it hurts. Right? Giving them the means to do better than we do the task in which they criticize us. So people say, you're not doing a good job. Okay. You can do it. Go ahead. Oh, the book that was written was not good. Feel free to write one. That's okay. It's easy to criticize. It's hard to really work. It's easy to sit down and point fingers, find flaws. It's like very easy. But it's harder to sit down and do better. So, Emmanuel is saying, Spiritism tells us, go ahead, do better. But he's not saying this out of ignorance. He's saying this because we should really allow people to go ahead and do it. Right? Exactly. Teresa Cassay, need for emotional intelligence training. Is that about the Hail Christ or about the love your enemy? Sorry, Teresa. Just asking you. But in spite of it all, I agree with you. We all need it. And he says here, it's when we are invited to cultivate patience, because Jesus taught us about it, and he even helped the persecutors without applauding their cruelty. The love your enemy. Thank you. Exactly. I agree with Teresa, and it's good that she's pointing it out, that when we talk about this recommendation by Jesus, which is a law in the universe, we should learn how to handle it. And one of the pathways is to have the courage to see heavy emotions in us, because usually we don't recognize them. And if we do, we enter a cycle of self-guilt, self-punishment, and that's not good. We're like, oh, I hate that person. Oh my God, who am I? I'm such a bad person. I study all these books and I still hate. Hold on. That doesn't define you. That emotion, look at the word, emotion. It's a movement that is externalized. That's all that it means. But I can change it. I can change this movement that is generating that. How? By creating new vibratory conditions. How? By giving new stimuli. We are beings who learn through conditionings. Remember Pavlov's dog. Meat, bell, salivation. Showing meat, bell, salivation. Right? Bell, meat, salivation. And then just the bell. Bell, meat, salivation. Bell, meat, salivation. The dog starts salivating without the meat. This is us. We need to change the stimulus and pair up. Pair up with things that are inside of us. That's why these books are here for us. The emotional training that we need are in these books. Really. Each and every book in Spiritism is a coach. You'll never sleep alone again. Put a book next to you. Okay, Emmanuel is my coach. Go throughout the day. Sometimes, I'll confess to you, every time I leave my home, I pick up a book and I put in my purse. And if I don't have a book, I decide in my phone which book I would like to have as a resource. If something goes off and I need a first aid kit, I go to the book, read a sentence and breathe in and out, and I say, it's my soul albuterol. If you know what albuterol is, you know what I'm talking about. It's about the dilator of the lungs. Okay? So, keep a book inside of your purse, or a message in your wallet, or keep your phone like a system. So you go and you breathe that in, dilate your mind, so it doesn't allow yourself to be compressed by that event. Breathe in and out. Open the book. If you need, because if you don't need, it's already here, fantastic. But there are cases in which are super hard. I open and I say, we have the obligation to educate ourselves and to serve. Creating these everyday habits by cooperating in the safety and happiness of all beings, even at the cost of our own sacrifice. See, just this sentence in chapter 20 of the Thought and Life book by Emmanuel gives us inspiration. Imagine if I am in traffic, almost like stopped. I open, I read, and I say, here we are. What can I do now to serve? Let me start praying for everybody here, huh? For the car in front of me, the car behind me, people in the car. I don't know. Use creativity, imagination, a department of our minds, and boost it up. So we need a system to condition ourselves, as Teresa is reminding us. Breathing, meditating, she's saying, positive self-talk. Beautiful. Thank you, Teresa. Beautiful summary. And he says, another point that sometimes we don't understand, and Spiritism comes to explain, is, but the Consoler, the Holy Spirit, whom my Father will send you in my name, will make clear in all things, and will remind you of all that I have said to you. Let us show that the Master does not report to a cosmic event, because some people think that the Consoler is going to be Jesus coming back again as a person. But he said it's not going to be me. He didn't say it's going to be a person. It's not going to be an event. And there are few churches that are prepared for the coming. And, okay, it's valid. But that's not what he means. He says, the Spirit is teachings. Okay? Clarify the paths of life and reaffirm what Jesus taught us. Spiritism repeats everything and explains what we still can't understand. So he says, do not use your belief to simply believe and create idolatry, because there are spiritists who forget that Spiritism is not dogmatic. And we start working a dogmatic way. But it's not. It's reasoned. And he says, recall that in the teachings we need to study and learn, understand, and explain. Study, learn. It's not enough to study. We need to absorb it. And then understand. Put it out. Explain. Explain what? To people, to ourselves. That's our therapy. In the next 24 hours, let's see if we can get one event in our day in the next 24 hours and break it down like Emmanuel taught us tonight by using the light of Spiritism. Shall we? Let's see anything that happens in the next 24 hours, if we can shed light with Spiritism and explain it. Shall we? It's a challenge, but that's our challenge. Let me say hi to the beautiful community that is here. Some have already disclosed where they are. We know Karina Alice is here, and she's in Brazil, and it's approaching 3 a.m. in Brazil, right? Julija is in Australia. Thank you so much, Julija. Lea Severo is in Sebastian, Florida, if I may share it, Lea. Katia, you want to share? I'm not going to share if people haven't said anything, okay? Ceisa, how are you? Teresa Castro, Lívia Moraes, Adriana Sanches Monteiro, Justina Martiri, how are you? Teresa Catapano, how are you? Paula, my friend, how are you? Sol Souza, Margaret Carmo, how are you? Sol and Margaret. Sunshine, how are you? Adilson, how are you, Adilson? Anna from Alabama. Angelita, how are you? Pérola is in Germany. 5 a.m. there when we started. Livia Moraes in Wisconsin. Thank you so much. And it's snowing there, right? A warm hug to you, my friend. Luciane Lopes, how are you? Silvio Otero in Seattle. Thank you, Silvia. It's 8 p.m. there when we started. Nora Brazil, how are you? Joyce, beautiful Joyce. People know she's in Toronto, Canada, with her beautiful family. Gustavo, how are you? Big hug to you and Marcia. Raquel Bakeshi, how are you? Rudy, what a joy. Cris Costa Camacho, how are you? Raquel Bakeshi is in South Carolina. Adriana Sanchez Monteiro is in Florida. Karina's Liz is sharing that she's happily awake. And Rudy is so kind. Thank you. I love the Big Apple too. And we'll be there this coming March for 2 commitments in Spiritism, and especially the family encounter in the Mount Vernon Spiritist Center on March 4th. If you're going to be around, join in. It's an event from, I think, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. as far as I remember. Okay, go to the Mount Vernon Spiritist Center, the website, and get to know more. So he's saying, she's saying, I'm always better listening and seeing you, Vanessa. Thank you, so you're adorable, and your daughter is as well. So, challenge for the next 24 hours. Let us bring the Spiritist teachings and shed some light. Remember what the Spirit said. To know the truth, there is a price, and the price is the effort. We need to make an effort, study, meditate, reflect. Let's see if we can have an event in our lives tomorrow and explain it through in the light of Spiritism. What's going to happen tomorrow when we come back? God willing, we will be back. And we'll be back to talk about something that is quite exciting. When we talk about mediumship, people talk about the law of attraction, right? Oh, it's attraction, law of attraction. Does it really exist? What is it? Well, Emmanuel is going to talk about it. Chapter 76. Chapter 76 is titled Magnet. No way. Yes, way. And he says, listen to this. This is a teaser, huh? Magnet. Close, very close to you, there are all those who preceded you in the trip of death. Whoa. What? He says more. He says more. I'm going to choose one more sentence here. Each spirit chooses the force that inspired them. Do we choose? Do we choose what we attract? I thought we just attract. How does it happen? Law of attraction tomorrow. Here at Cardiac Radio at 11 p.m. The Medium's Harvest. For now, a big hug. Focus on the truth. Let's stay together. Until tomorrow, friends.